Lord Turner, you advocate that real estate lending must be restricted and we need to tackle inequality and mitigate the relentless rise of real estate prices. Well, this is obviously a huge topic at the moment and one where there seems to be no easy solution, as if you put the brakes on one aspect, another one perhaps springs a leak. So what's your suggestion?
The relationship between credit extension and real estate is not just part of the story of financial instability in modern economies. It is again and again 90% of the story. It is why Japan goes through a crisis after the real estate boom of the late 1980s. It's why the Scandinavians have the banking crisis of the early 1990s. It's why Massachusetts gets into a mess at the end of the 80s. And it's fundamental to what happens in the US, what happens in the UK, what happens in Spain and Ireland in 2008. It is again and again this relationship between credit and real estate. Now, what can we do about it? I argue that we should have much higher capital requirements for banks, but in particular, I think we should have much higher capital requirements against real estate lending. Again, I'm not suggesting that we can have an economy without real estate lending. We need commercial real estate developers. We need a mortgage market to lubricate the exchange of houses between people. But I would like less leverage in those at lower LTVs, and I think we can have higher capital requirements set against real estate loans. We'll have to achieve that. But I think one also has to go to some fundamentals which are also driving it. Things like, what is the supply of new housing? Is one creating cycles of house price increase because of constraints on building new housing supply? You've got to work out how we make more dense cities workable for everybody, rather than creating an environment where you have to live in one part of town because if you live in another part of town the commute is so horrible, so that you don't get this extreme competition for particular locations. And I think we should probably look at also at the taxation. The fact is that through a different set of mechanisms, and they vary country to country, we make investment in real estate, in particularly in single homes. In some countries, even more than one home, we make it significantly advantaged versus other sorts of investment. And I think we should rebalance that in some way. So I think we've got to use a number of levers. And what I do say in the book, though, is we mustn't fool ourselves we're going to solve this. There are some fundamental reasons why modern economies become more real estate intensive, and therefore it's a problem that we have to manage rather than something that we're ever going to make magic away.
Do you think perhaps we could follow the model of Germany or Finland, where the culture is to rent rather than buy?
The culture to rent rather than buy may well help, say in Germany and Finland. It's quite interesting. Why hasn't that then produced what we have in the UK, which is this buy-to-let boom?
But rents are really low in Germany, so it doesn't make business sense.
Now, the answer is that the understanding why Germany is like it is, I think, is a really important bit. Very complicated set of things to do with the way the planning system work, the local institutions work, the maximum loan to values that you can have on a security, which goes into what's called the German Pfandbriefe bond. Like a lot of these things, you have to understand lots and lots of stuff which are rooted in the history. One of the things that appears to help, and this doesn't provide an easy answer for Britain, is where you have urban geographies of multiple mid-sized cities, Hamburg and Stuttgart and Munich and Berlin and Düsseldorf and Frankfurt, rather than one dominant agglomeration such as London, that seems to have less of a tendency to produce these very strong cycles than we get in other countries. So there's a lot of complex lessons. The difficulty is, I don't think it's easy to go to Germany and work out what the silver bullet is and say, oh, if we only do that, we'd be able to stop these booms and busts in other countries. I mean, let's take, for instance, another country you might have thought was culturally quite similar to Finland, which is Sweden. Sweden has enormous problems with real estate booms which keep on occurring in central Stockholm. They occur despite the fact that this is a thinly populated country with lots of land, but it's a place where so many people who are high talent and high income want to live in a particular bit, which is the centre of Stockholm, that they produce these real estate booms just as much as anybody in the UK or the US.